Hi, Ewan. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
It's great to see you. Um, we were looking at your poem, and we thought we would ask you some questions about it. Is that okay?
Sure, absolutely.
Right. The first question we were looking at was, I know this may be a bit obvious, but why did you write your poem about the Glasgow girls?
Well, I hadn't had time to process everything that happened to us all. And what came up was a conference that Amal and myself and Claire were asked to speak at. And it was a conference called the Five Nations Network Conference. And I just wondered how I could put together what I wanted to say. And it just so happened that I did it in verse. And I felt easier doing it that way. I also wanted to sing it a bit because of the thing that you were saying, that people's attention span. So I did a wee bit of poetry and a wee bit of song just to keep everybody entertained.
Excellent. Um, and the second question is, why did you write it in the Scots language?
Right. Well, I've always been interested in Scots, obviously being Scots, and having been brought up in Ayrshire, and basically being bilingual because the Scots that I learned in Ayrshire is Germanic roots. It's got Germanic Scots. We say eight for eight, and twa for two, and things like this. And we talk about the kirk in the church and so on. So it was the fact that when I was at school, Scots was considered to be a lesser language, and well, in fact, it's a lead all of its own. And I really wanted to tell it in my own language
Mhm,
because I felt that that was possibly it was the way it came to myself
mhm.
more. The other thing though was I wanted to, as Amal had said, talking about community, I wanted to show that the entire community was involved in our Glasgow Girl project, as it were. And the whole scheme of things was that we had not only involved the community, but we involved as many groups, NGOs, and so on as possible, just to come in and support people. So it was this idea that the school isn't an island on its own, that we actually have to communicate with the world, and what a joyful thing it is when you go out and communicate with the world and get support from everyone. The other thing was that in the films and in the play itself, there were a few people who were very key to what we did that weren't mentioned, and I wanted them to be mentioned as well, and to show that it was part of a whole community effort.
Mhm. Fantastic. Um, and the this is a question that we were wondering, given that you are a writer, um, who is your favourite Scottish author and why?
Right at the moment, right? I've got lots of Scottish authors. I could give you Jackie Kay. I could give you Robert Burns. I could give you the wonderful Olga. How do I say that? Olga Wojtas? I'm not sure. Right? It was definitely a teacher that wrote it, and it's a brilliant book, and I've laughed all the way through it.
All right.
However, my favourite poet at the moment is a lovely woman called Len Penny, and she's called Miss Punny Penny on Twitter. And she comes out with some tremendous Scots poems, and she does a Scots word of the day, and it could be like a word like blether, meaning to chat and to talk. And it's just enjoyable.
For the Tale of the Glasgow Girls, you've got two versions of it. One is the spoken version, and the other version you sing it.
Yeah, the poem itself is based on a song called The Mason's Apron, or a tune called The Mason's Apron. And the poem was inspired by a great Scots folk writer and former English teacher, Adam McNaughton. And he wrote a tremendous song, and I hope you'll put this in your sway. called about Hamlet. It's called Our Hamlet, and it tells the entire story of Hamlet and explains it to you. And it's in Scots, and it's funny. It gave me the chance to do verses, but in my choruses, I was able to comment on things. So as Amal had touched on before, I was commenting on the way in which the Home Office dealt with things. I could comment on how I thought that older pupils are the best people to talk to younger pupils about issues like racism and difference and so on. So I was able to, tell the story, but also comment on it more widely. So I enjoyed doing that. As well as that, though, when I was teaching, my principal teacher was a guy called Ian Davidson, and he recorded Adam McNaughton's song, the Geely Piece song, which for those of us of a certain age, when we were growing up, was the song that everybody sang, because it was about the high-rise flats. And it was about throwing a piece or a sandwich down to the mother or the father, throwing a piece down to the child from the high-rise flats. And in an odd way, I thought this was interesting in relation to the story, because the Glasgow girls' story, a lot of refugee and asylum families were put in the high-rise flats. So that was what was behind it all. As well as that, I've been a failed folk singer for years. So I thought I might as well try singing it.
Fantastic.